Are we going to start the podcast?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh my god!
Oh shit!
Hello, everyone.
Hello. It's us.
Yes, it is indeed.
Is it D you're looking for?
I can see it in your eyes.
I can see it in your, or I can hear it in your Exactly.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Welcome everyone to podcast number 143.
Yep.
Almost as many episodes of JoJo's there were.
Yeah.
But still fewer.
Still fewer.
JoJo's reactions outdates the podcast.
Yeah, think about that for a second.
Think about that.
Like, it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit ridiculous.
It is actually kind of insane to think about that we've been doing reactions to this show for so long, and yet we're not even actually done really with the show.
I certainly hope not.
No, I can almost say with like certainty, not having seen the future or anything, not
but
like I have that ability, because there's more parts of JoJo's eventually to come, hopefully. David Productions, please.
Yep.
But for the time being, Saturdays will no longer be JoJo days, and we're gonna be okay. But we want to make sure you guys are gonna be okay too. So for now, let's have a requiem, if you will.
There you go.
For a show that we will all be in hiatus land together.
Right.
Waiting so long, but not that long.
Are we done with JoJo's forever? Hell no. But yeah, it's probably gonna be a while till
Caleb, please read the manga. Daga Kotowaru. There's many parts specifically, not just in the structural sense within JoJo's, but there's so many little moments and things within the actual show that are so memorable to me. Yeah, exactly. So many. Yeah. No, Jacob. Clearly, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. It can't actually be a phone.
So, as we do this podcast here, we're going to be going through, lightly touching upon each part of JoJo's.
Yep.
Much like Kira would, lightly caress his hand. I mean, sandwich. Clearly, his sandwich. The real reason
it's almost
why
like
part
it's a
4
picnic
needed to happen. Yeah.
I gotta say, like, we've done show recap kind of podcasts and stuff before,
right.
Yeah. But even with JoJo's, this was something where when we were thinking about it, we were like, all right, just one podcast for JoJo's seems like kind of hard to do potentially because there's a lot to cover.
Right.
And, we've had a lot of time to cover JoJo's and things like that. But, thinking back to the very beginning, where it started, not even realizing that to be continued meme was from JoJo's.
Not to realize that it wasn't actually a vampire show.
Right. Yeah.
Because I remember episode 2. And Dio's little encounter along the walkway near the water and stuff.
Yeah.
And realizing, oh my god, wait, is this a vampire show? And no. Or well, yes, but actually no. So, Yeah.
And then, of course, when we got to Joseph, that was a blessed day.
It was.
And the Pillar Men.
Indeed. I oozied all over the recording studio.
I never would have thought I would be cheering for the Nazis to show up. But leave it to JoJo's.
Yeah. You be very surprised by the arrival of Stroheim and German scientific technology, or
German medical technology
is the greatest in the world.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
so before we get too far into the memes and the wild, bizarre nature of this show, got to give a shout out to one of our VIP patrons, one of the oldest VIP patrons we have thus far. That is Urki or Urkai. Thank you so much for the support all these years.
A lot.
You were incredible, and thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 137 people in this podcast.
Whoa.
Okay, we got a lot of you in here.
Almost as many episodes.
Yes, Sekaiichi! Indeed. We want to hear a lot from you guys as well as we go through this. What are some of your favorite memes, your favorite little lines, your favorite moments, your favorite, kind of goofy presentation of the animation even? Mm-hmm. Someone mentioned earlier the jump over the fountain. Like, oh my gosh. Yes, from the anime only.
Right.
Mods are awesome.
Mods will be muda-mudaing everything. You thought no mod could deflect the spoiler splash. Well, turns out every mod can deflect the spoiler splash. So don't even try it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Ah, yes, the torture dance.
Ah, yes. Yeah, Mr. Joester. Oh my god. Kodo Dioda, am I right, guys? Oh my god. See, you're a real JoJo fan. No, I don't even think you necessarily have to be a JoJo fan at this point to know what is said underneath here.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Giorno giving Mista head. Oh my god. Oh, that's a baseball. Yeah.
But yeah, Narancia just being like, oh my god, what am I seeing right now? I'll just ignore it. I won't say anything.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Wait, we have a lot of follows to do, and I see a couple subs coming in here, so let me go through these really quick. We've got K Shadow 21, Wow Maniacs, Reaper 520, Yabo Ihanzi, Daisy on Hard, The Worst Zero, Evil Peanut Nuke, and Bayanort with the tier 1 sub for 9 months. Thank you so much. Chauriki Akikonyan, Bias Susschuster, Sky Sword 73, Gaftastonti, Wild Deer Born, Honeymana 2, Avatar 321, thank you so much for the follows. Ameju with the 13 months at tier 1. Hey guys, speaking of bizarre, have you seen the emotes I made for you two? Oh no,
indeed,
haven't seen them at all.
They're actually quite fantastic.
They're not at all haunting my very mind at this moment. Rip City 19 with the 11 months at tier 1, thank you so much. And Bayanort with the 100 bits cheer. I still don't know if JoJo should be canceled for making me go, hooray, it's the Nazis, or I don't know, even the word to describe it. I mean, I guess the idea that the mankind's greatest monsters would help in saving it, even if for selfish reasons, I don't know. I kind of like the concept, even if a completely unrealistic one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Everything from Doppio's fight with Risotto to a Bakio's farewell, in my opinion. Some of the best in the JoJo period.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. F Mega! Yeah. Oh my god, I love how many of these are just the English.
Yep.
Like literally one of my main highlights of JoJo's, in fact, I believe the very first one I wrote down was just English. Like, that is one of the most wonderful things about JoJo's, is that they did not hold back in letting their voice actors and voice actresses just go crazy.
What it makes me
so
wonder
much fun with it.
How in the hell, maybe I just need to check it out, but in the dub, how do you capture that same essence? Mm-hmm. I feel like you just don't. There's no way to do it,
Yeah, absolutely. You fell for it, fool! Thunder Cross split attack!
Yes.
Oh my god.
Goodbye, JoJo!
Yeah. Oh my god. There are so many. Oh my god.
Also just the OPs.
Yeah,
or just the music, the sound, just everything regarding that. There's
a shark in my soup. Oh my gosh. It's actually kind of incredible how many different moments. There's almost an innumerable there's too many to count, really, or even remember. How many moments are there where if you took those 5 seconds out of context, could anyone logically explain what's going on screen?
Abdul and Joseph with the magnets,
Yep. Classic.
Absolutely classic.
And I've already shared the story of what happened when I showed a bunch of people who've never seen actual anime before, the part 5 torture dance scene.
Oh, yes.
I got very different responses from 3 different people.
I can imagine.
It was quite special. Just the idea of one of them being mortally horrified.
Right, what is this? I'm suddenly very worried about you as a person.
Yeah. Yep. The other person going, wait a minute, why is his eyelid so strong? Like, that's the one thing that they focused on. They're like, I'm like, you're not worried about the fact that it's a severed head? Like,
right, and that the person's still conscious.
Right, exactly.
But then the other person was probably just like, vocal percussion on a whole nother level.
So one of them specifically ended up getting interested because of the actual music and the dance. Once the dance started going, they were like, and then the conversation that continued was me describing the entire show over the course of about an hour, which is kind of about what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Part
That's
one.
Right.
Everyone.
So
who out there did not skip part one?
Yeah.
Because you guys are spreading the real message.
Yeah, skipping part one is something you just don't do.
You don't do that.
Like now granted,
that
might seem a bit strange considering what I'm going to say next, but in my personal opinion, the best thing about part one can just be lifted straight from the Muppet Christmas Carol. It was dumb, it was obvious, it was pointless, it was short. I loved it. now I'm meaning actually fairly serious here, because you can say that the best part about it was that it was short as a meme or an insult or whatever. But because it was fairly basic as far as the story and everything, I think David Production made a really good decision in deciding to have it only be 9 episodes.
I think they could have made it even shorter.
Yeah, they could have made it even shorter. The worst part of it was those middle 3 episodes in my mind, because those could have also been maybe, cut out or greatly reduced, right?
Or greatly reduced,
but then, because then if there was something that was something that was too familiar or whatever, you could just sort of skip past it. And then you just got the style of everything. As we have Speedwagon giving his overly specific exposition and being like, yes, let's watch Jonathan's arm or his shoulder dislocate itself in slow motion so that he can deliver a punch and it will somehow still feel like that punch would have impact. Yeah. Why not? But we're still moving along. So you don't, if it is something that would bother you, you don't have enough time to let it actually bother you, because we're already to the next thing.
But how many of y'all remember the first time when you watched JoJo's and you realized that it was broken into parts and your main character died at the end of one?
In episode 9.
Episode 9.
You're gearing up
to be
Game
of Thrones.
Right. Like maybe it's something where you don't know too much about JoJo's or whatever, but maybe you know about how long it is or something, even if you don't know about all the different JoJo's and things like that. But the idea that even if you did know about that, episode 9, the first one's dead.
Yep.
I would not have expected that. Like,
no.
That's something that completely throws you for a loop, and it's like, okay, we're getting into something unique here.
Yep. In fact, because of the middle 3 episodes, in my opinion, some of the lower episodes with regards to JoJo's as a whole, I think I ended up expecting, well, this is from an older manga, so we're gonna have to get used to these characters. But we had freaking Zeppeli, remember?
Yep.
Remember, hey, baby! You remember how, goofy fun he was? He punched a frog with yellow lightning light powers, and the frog was boing,
Yeah. What was it? He did some kind of, key strikes or whatever on Jonathan to help him unlock his powers or whatever. And then he tries to do it on Speedwagon and it just almost makes him lose his lunch. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I can even lift up this rock. I think that the over-the-top nature of part 1, the Shakespearean aspect of it, not just because it's set in England, but because these characters are so into the drama of their own lives, kind of in some way sold by how well done the first 3 episodes of JoJo's part 1 are.
Oh yeah, they were real snappy.
They kept the pace moving along, and it was very much a tight plot of a family drama. Because Daddy Joestar Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't paying as close attention. Well, no, we figured out that he was paying attention.
No, but I meant because of his kindness.
Right, because of his kindness,
Yeah.
Jonathan and a whole lot of other people ended up suffering. And we also learned of Araki's absolute hatred of animals, specifically those of the canine persuasion.
George, okay, because I was actually a little bit confused. That's why I said Daddy Joestar. I was like, wait a minute, was George the one in between Joseph and Jonathan?
What was the name of the one in between Joseph and Jonathan?
Yeah, it's so long ago. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But that's also George.
Also George. Okay, George was second. Yes. Oh, of course it was, because Jonathan is such the earnest good boy that he would absolutely name his son after his dad, not Zeppeli or anything like that.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's really funny. I was like, but I thought that was George.
Yeah.
Awesome. Starting off strong here. One of the things that Part 1 also sufficiently does, and I would say in what it's probably best known for, even more so than what they did with Jonathan and just the Joestar lineage in general, is the introduction of probably one of anime's greatest villains of all time. Like, Dio has so much to his persona, to this unique presence that he brings to the story.
Yep.
He is a petty little bitch. He
that gets god powers.
He is given unlimited power and has all the ego, all the stage presence. Yes, absolutely.
Well,
and he is so good later that in some ways I think it's fun to excuse a little bit of Part 1 to be like, well, we're setting up Dio. We're setting up Dio so that when he comes back, it means something.
Right.
And also so that when we see him acting like a god in Part 3, we can kind of laugh and point like, yeah, you were the petty little kid that put on a mask and didn't know what you were doing. And, look at you trying so hard to be, I am so important. Right. I spent the majority of my life in a box, but, yes, I am Dio.
Also, maybe this is an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
But Dio in Part 3 isn't that great. Because I would say on its own, it's not that great. It is really good, but it's because it's drawing on the stuff that we got with Dio in Part 1. If not for, like, Part 1 is the introduction of Dio, but we don't get that much with Dio in Part 3. We get him brooding in a room.
That's true.
In a dark room every once in a while. And then we get the stuff at the very end. And the stuff at the very end is fantastic and amazing and wonderful, right? But up till then, why should we care about this Dio guy? Who is this Dio guy, right?
Yep.
Like, that, if all we got was the awesomeness at the end of Part 3, I would say that still would have been pretty unsatisfying, because for that whole beginning portion of the story, we wouldn't, even if we knew who he was, we wouldn't care about him, right?
That's true.
Because he wouldn't have the presence. We wouldn't know that he has the presence that he would end up having because we hadn't seen it earlier.
Yep.
And Part 1 really nailed that.
Definitely. Part 1 basically gives us the space to allow Dio to flex his villain muscles. The part where he's just talking to a random village, mom, and he's just menacingly sitting there. He's just sitting there menacingly.
Right.
And taunting her, and then eventually turns her into a vampire and has her kill and eat her own kid. Yeah, that just happens in Part 1.
Yeah.
There's this aspect of Araki where his villains are not super complex in the beginning. And then he basically erases all of the villain sympathy that I think a lot of characters get if they're, one, attractive, but
and Dio is that.
Two, if they're also really good wordsmiths, like with the way they interact with the main character.
They convince even the audience that the world does revolve around them just in the way that they think it does, right? The villain, that is.
Absolutely.
And then there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although personally, I'll bring this up more in a later part. I don't think Dio's the best villain.
No, Dio is not the best villain.
I don't think so. He's amazing, but I don't think he's the best villain of JoJo's.
Nope, but I think in some ways he transcends JoJo's because of that. That's what makes him a really good villain in anime. But the best villain has to be in JoJo's in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Part 4.
We'll get into that in part 4. Yes. Part 2, probably the best thing to happen to JoJo's in terms of a transition in story. Even in the middle of parts.
Right. Even thinking about comparing it like Hamon to Stans, that's a big transition.
That is a big transition.
That is a really important transition that happened, right? Yep. And I love everything that Araki does.
And it's a shake-up in terms of the structure of the story. Yes. But the transition from having Jonathan to Joseph is one of our favorite things about this whole freaking show.
Like with part 2 and like the coming up with the stuff for this, for a lot of them, I feel like it was for me personally, it was something where I was wanting to make sure that I wasn't just stating the obvious, right? We all know Speedwagon's amazing. We know Dio's amazing. We know part 1 isn't as appreciated as the other ones, and for good reason. And we know that Joseph is the best Joestar from the ones that we've seen thus far. I don't think anyone will really debate that.
Even Araki understands that. He couldn't kill Joseph for the entire freaking show. He's just like,
you might be able to say that Jotaro's more iconic.
I'll just write him into being senile, and he just kind of is somewhere being old, you know?
But like, Araki's style is such a major part of JoJo's, right? That the substance of the conflict isn't as important, and that's something that we've seen in all the parts, I feel like.
Absolutely.
But it's changed as JoJo's as a franchise has gone on, right? Part 1 being very simple, part 2 being what it was, and then the stands and having that sort of stand of a week set up, you know, as you get towards the main, you know, villain.
Right.
But in part 2, I feel like it was something where because Joseph was, one, a ton of fun to watch, right? He was super entertaining.
His first few scenes that we got from him were entirely just him being a goofball. Like,
instantly won you over.
Like, the whole scene with the Coke bottle is, in my opinion, one of the best introductions to a protagonist I've seen in anime.
Yeah,
it's the classic thing of where we have the character who's being beat up in the alley or threatened in an alley. And then the badass kind of walks on by and is like, what's going on here, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, oh my god, the way in which they basically set up the entire part by saying, yes, we have a character that uses Hamon. They're good at using Hamon. So you're still understanding that this is going to be a battle show for the most part.
Yep.
But they do it in ways that you would come up with.
Right. Exactly.
Goofy ways that you, in your little kind of fan-fiction-y, silly brain, would come up with just for fun. Like, he does that. In fact, he thinks of better ones to do it than you would come up with.
And that's where Araki's imagination, I feel like, really shines. Like, the stands are a great structured way to do that later. But as far as with characters, Joseph, I feel like he hasn't really been topped. And, like, the Coke bottle is amazing. My personal favorite is the freaking shot glasses to redirect the lasers.
Yes, right? And he puts one on his neck and one on his forehead. Right. It's like, these are the 2 kill shots, right? Yeah. Why didn't you put one over your heart? Who cares? No, you're going to put them over.
It's such bullshit. And yet, it is so completely owned, the fact that it's bullshit, and being like, but it's kind of maybe has a point here, and theoretically, possibly, just maybe, you know, even if he was right and he was able to like predict that Striso would shoot the lasers at him in those locations, he is able to be so precise with it that he's able to keep the shot glasses, which just the fact that a shot glass redirects a laser. All right, cool. Yeah, why not?
Absolutely.
Because why wouldn't it, you know? And he just puts them both there. And but there's the logic of, he can only narrow it down to 2 spots, so he puts 1 in each.
Yes,
of course.
I think that the meme that I saw, and someone said it in chat here, that's bullshit, but I believe it. Is basically something that wasn't a thing in part 1. Right. In part 1, it's something where we're like, well, we don't know what kind of style this show is going for yet. So until we see something that contradicts its own kind of style within its style, we don't know what style it has. So when Jonathan passes away and part 1 ends, we have a huge time skip, and we're in a much different environment. And we're like, okay, cool. We're kind of shifting, trying to, establish our feet in a good foundation of a story. This character shows up and whips out like an Uzi or a Tommy gun and just starts spraying bullets into Strizo immediately before he can even talk.
Which is like...
And then has like 25 grenades attached to his little his overcoat cape thing.
Yeah, how he managed to get... Who cares? Who cares? Like, this guy can predict your lines. Like, it doesn't matter what... Like, the ridiculousness, it's going to be all the ridiculousness. And... Because, okay, Jonathan, you go, Jonathan. You do your thing. You have that pluck and everything. But there's something about, like, there's a certain amount of almost, like, meta frustration, I would say, that we can get into sometimes with stories, where because we know a lot of the contrivances that they have to go with, or a lot of the ways to sort of just make it be as mass market appealing as possible, that's I feel like kind of like what Jonathan was in a lot of ways. Is you got to have the good guy that does the good things and he doesn't do the bad things and he's never conflicted and blah blah blah, right? And then when it is not when it's something where it's like, oh, that's totally an asshole, where like we'll try to kind of explain it a little bit to be like, no, it's not actually, but taken in a serious enough way that it still feels kind of like, But then with Joseph, it's like, no. Okay, let's say you actually have like a crazy vampire. Right? There is no way you would go up to it and be like, I want to make sure you're doing okay, and that, I know you're going on literally a murderous rampage right now, but I believe you can change, right? Now, if Jonathan wants to be that way, great, go for it. But sometimes there's the whole idea of the more practical approach, right? Where, sometimes you need to just pull out a Tommy gun. No declaration of, like the battle has begun, roll for initiative or anything. You got to get that surprise round, right? And just blow them to pieces, right? It doesn't matter that you're in public. It's fine. I mean, it's not going to work anyway. We know that. Right, exactly. This is for the audience. I feel like when Araki just went ham with Joseph, he realized in a lot of ways that, this is a way to counter any kind of, feedback regarding how, Jonathan was kind of stale. I'm going to make this character so nuts, so ridiculous, and do such ridiculous ass pulls regarding their, techniques and stuff, and actually make you go, I don't care that it doesn't make any sense. This is something that is so freaking cool to watch that I have to see what happens next. I have to. And I think that that is something that is carried forth through the rest of JoJo's, through stands and like everything. Like it like goes as the theme for, that was insane. I can't entirely explain it, but you know what? I love it.
Yeah. I want to see what happens next. And that's it. That's the show.
One of the other things that I think was so brilliant about Joseph, one of the things, especially in like books, I feel like this is a lot more obvious because you can always see how many pages there are left, right?
Oh, sure.
Books tend to move a lot slower than television. Totally. You can kind of forget, like within bounds of how far you are into the episode or the movie or whatever.
Sure.
Not completely, but, the specifics, right?
Yep.
But with a book, it's always a big thing where it's, okay, what do you do for Act 2? Or the second book? Or the whatever, right? It's why the middle of a trilogy is usually the one that sucks. Because it's, it can't get resolved here. So what do? Right? And I feel like Joseph is that in a nutshell. Because he's constantly up against these enemies that can hand his ass to him, right?
Yeah. Like he's so weak compared to them.
He's so weak compared to them. And because this is JoJo's and the villains are dramatic and everything, and they have these crazy powers like lasers and, just being pillar men and whatnot, he's not going to defeat them right away. Nope. Right? It's going to take a while to get to the point where we can maybe justify sort of actually having him defeat one of them, right?
Yep.
So as a result of that, don't have his attempts to like beat them actually be serious. Own the fact that it's not going to work, that it is stupid, right? Yeah, have him use those ham-on clackers, right? Because it's not about whether he'll beat them or not. It's about, I want to see what this guy comes up with. Because I know it's not going to work, but he doesn't know that, you know?
And then Araki started to do something that... he had it in part 1, because we had two characters die pretty brutally. And, maybe Dio had died in part 1. But, we lost a little bit of frames there.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay. A little bit of a glitchy things there. But we're back. In part 2, there was a very clear power scaling of sorts that Joseph could not beat the Pillarmen.
There was just no way.
There was no way. And then the one character that actually went mano-a-mano with one of them in a fight where it wasn't like some kind of set of, tricks and stuff like that, ends up dying.
Yep.
And rest in peace, Caesar. I think that was probably one of the more over the top and dramatic deaths because we had been having such a good time with this kind of new, smaller squad.
Yeah.
And
Well, and one of the things that I love about Caesar dying, other than, just the fact that it was a very emotional moment, is the fact that why did he actually go to fight the Pillarmen by himself? It was because of a mistake that was made between him and Joseph, right? Where they weren't able to resolve their differences, and as a result, there were permanent consequences. Caesar died, right? It wasn't something where he goes in and he's getting beaten by Wham, and then Joseph comes in and saves him, and then they reconcile. No, he's gone. There's a stone cross with blood coming out from underneath it.
Yep.
That's it, right?
It's done.
There is no happy ending for Caesar there.
Yeah.
And that's something that, for all the ridiculousness of JoJo's and for all the bullshit that Joseph is able to pull and get away with, that was the right amount of seriousness that's thrown in there as a curveball to be like, hey, no, this still is, you need to take these guys seriously. Just because he can do his thing of playing dead, getting up, crawling, playing dead, getting up, crawling, right? That doesn't mean that you can just do that without consequences.
Yep. So part 2 ends. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. In some ways, setting up for the next part being even more bizarre. Because in part 2, they still try to kind of sequence it out by the idea in that they set up kind of the locations, the idea that Cars has all these crazy abilities, the ascendance of a new demigod or what have you, and it's
the Red Stone of Aja.
Sex is useless, like there's so many little things within that. But then because of Caesar, we think Joseph could die. Because of Jonathan, we think Joseph could die.
Yep.
And Araki's like, haha, but actually, your next line will be, Joseph, how did you live?
Basically.
Yeah. And why not? Why not? Yeah.
There was...
I feel continuity now from part 2 to part 3.
Right. Like in each part of JoJo's, I feel like there's this element of sort of like squad that's built, within the characters. And part 2, I would say, is the one that actually rivals part 5. I would say, like, and we'll talk about that later, but the fact that you had, if you think about the characters, right? You had Joseph, and of course he's awesome. You've got Lisa, you got Caesar, and you got Stroheim, right? Yep. And Speedwagon, right?
Speedwagon's less apparent and prominent than in part 1, but yeah, he's there.
He's still Speedwagon, right? That's quite a set of 5 characters, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
And it makes this sense of like camaraderie as they're going on their journey, right? On their bizarre journey with a bunch of bizarre characters to defeat bizarre villains, right? And it's such an integral part of JoJo's, I feel like, that the fact that it's done so well in part 2, when in some other parts I feel like it was a little bit, the ball was dropped.
Well, and it's not even that I'd say it's better in part 2. I just think because of actually the length and the fact that they keep things a little bit more structurally sound, that it's not really that their synergy is that great. It's just that it leaves less room for uneven stuff regarding these characters. I think part 3, in my opinion, has better overall kind of like squad synergy. but it also is way more uneven than part 2. So we end up in situations where it's just feeling like, okay, I guess Polnareff's going to do something dumb again.
Right.
But, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and the fact that we were able to get that in such a small amount of time is impressive.
Yeah. Because I would say, if anything, it's more Joseph that carries part 2 over the other characters. I feel like Lisa has some cool opportunities there, and in some ways, it's kind of sad that she is maybe the best female JoJo's character, in these parts. Yeah, and it's like, ooh, yeah. Araki didn't figure out how to, beat her.
Wasn't too much
regard,
improvement over the years.
But with regards to the finale of part 2, I feel like one of the best moments that I had in JoJo's was the cliffhanger finale of part 2.
With Dio's coffin?
The triple cliffhanger.
Oh.
The fact that Joseph didn't die, and then he comes back with Lisa, and it's just a ridiculous setup there for this whole thing. And then we get Dio's coffin getting pulled out of the ocean, which is in and of itself just so glad they did that.
Oh, yeah.
Then also actually having the teaser of a bad boy Joestar who's sitting in jail behind bars with menacing text floating in front of him.
That's right. That was at the end of part 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, they showed off Jotaro before we even knew who he was. We were like, ooh, is that the new JoJo? And just kind of seeing that whole... wait. Did I say Lisa?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, I meant to say Suzy Q. That's so weird.
It's just that Suzy Q was so forgettable that
yeah. Well, there's a little goof. There you go. So, part 3, in my opinion, some of the best and the slowest of JoJo's. In this part, it is the largest part thus far. It has the largest cast of characters because it's the largest part. In some ways, I would say one of the most iconic of the parts.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like part 3, it's not really my favorite personally, but as far as what it is, iconic is definitely the word to describe it in my mind.
And I would say that it's very much a part that is going to vary greatly in terms of your appreciation for it based on the things that you come to JoJo's for, primarily. I would say that some of my favorite lines delivered in JoJo's came from part 3. So many things that Joseph says in part 3 are quotable to eternity and beyond. To infinity and beyond. Just absolutely some of the best lines said in JoJo's. It also has some of the most grandiose kind of a feel to it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's this idea of an impossible adventure with a deadline, and yet they're going to somehow make it there. So there's no tension, really, regarding whether or not they're going to make it to Dio, but it's who's going to make it to Dio.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, the best thing about part 3, is that the escalation is slow. It slowly builds. The slow bit is both, I would say, the negative and the positive, is that over time, things get more and more intense. The stands start to get more and more creative, more and more bombastic and over the top. The actual stand users themselves become more charismatic, more unique. There's freaking Pet Shop. Do you guys remember Pet Shop?
I remember Pet Shop.
Pet Shop. That was a part 3.
Yep.
It's the episodic little mini arc encounter. It was one of the most terrifying villains in JoJo's.
Oh yeah, that was where we started to get the feeling of, oh yeah, that's right, Iggy is a dog. Araki really likes killing dogs.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
To recap part 3, it wouldn't even of itself be a bizarre adventure.
Yeah.
It gives you the best picture in my mind for the gamut of how crazy JoJo's can be if you just watched part 3.
Yeah, part 3, It's so bombastic, and that's saying something for JoJo's to say that like one part in particular is like bombastic is the way to describe that part.
Yeah,
because yes, JoJo's is style to the nines, right?
Yep.
Like it totally Araki knows how to do style. But part 3, as repetitive as a lot of the stand of the week stuff was, the most like I still found it entertaining because there was style to it. Even if I was wondering, all right, come on, it's obvious that guy's a stand user, or why haven't they figured out that we're under attack by an enemy stand, or whatever? Why are they letting Joseph drive anything, you know? But like, that was still something that was suffused, is that? No. Infused throughout all of the part, right? And to have that last for the full 48 episodes, that's tough to do.
Yep.
Like, that's not easy.
Yep. If you think about the squad of the Joe Bros, they spend, I would say, very little time actually getting them all together. It's quite quick in the fact that Abdul is introduced in the very beginning, along with Joseph coming to get Jotaro. Then Kakyoin attacks, and you know, that whole thing goes. However you... Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You go with that. And then we get Polnareff a little bit later. And Polnareff is interesting. I want to have a little bit of a pause for Polnareff here. Because if you look back on Part 3, and I have not actually to this day rewatched Part 3 in its entirety. There's a few episodes I actually do not want to rewatch.
Sure.
Just for reasons.
One with the gorilla?
That's one of them. Yep. But I would say that the character of Polnareff occupies this strange spot in almost like the, I'll call it basically the Araki favoritism character kind of focus.
Sure, yeah.
Where Araki basically looks at the cast of the characters and goes, yeah, that's the JoJo. But I like this guy. Like
I'm gonna keep you.
I really like this guy. This guy, I'm going to give like so much focus to this character that they'll outshine the JoJo. And it's kind of fun how consistently this kind of comes up. And it's fun because it happens in every part after this.
That is a really good point.
We'll get into that in a second here. But yep, you guys are
Koichi,
shouting out Koichi. You guys know,
like,
you guys know what's up.
There was so much in part 4 where it's like, why isn't this just about Koichi?
Yep, exactly. So when Polnareff is brought in, we don't know that that's going to be the case.
That's true.
But early on in JoJo's Part 3, they have, in my opinion, one of the best mini stand encounters of the whole part rather early, and that's against the Hanged Man and the whole horse.
Entire horse.
The entire equine. This encounter was perfect JoJo's. We have Polnareff's one of his first instances of kind of splitting from the party. So it's not gotten repetitive yet. But the act in that we start to see that he has not only his desire for vengeance, his past catching up with him here. We have a character whose emotional bravado that has been a thing in JoJo's in the past having real consequences that are immediate, not felt way later,
right? Because Abdul wasn't actually dead,
and they don't happen to them. So I think this was another instance of where he took kind of a little bit of the Caesar thing, and was like, I'm going to refine it a little bit more, give a lot more character development to the characters involved here.
Make it be more of a, not just a spat argument, but like a specific thing where Polnareff can later be like, shit, that's my fault. That really is my fault. I messed up. Why wasn't I thinking clearly? You know, what was I doing? Right?
Yep. And the fact that Abdul died there, wonderful way to set up basically the intense nature of Part 3 in that more people are going to die.
Right. Yes.
So I think even though Abdul came back way later, which I wish he didn't. I wish that would have been something that would have been done slightly differently. I like that still in some ways it almost, thinking, in the context of the whole thing. Remember in Part 5 when a character died but didn't, and then eventually died later anyway?
Yep.
maybe this is another instance of where Araki looked at the past and was like, I'm going to do that, but do it a lot better.
Yep.
With a character that's, way better characterized with Bruno.
Also, I forget the name of the song that was I believe the first ED for JoJo's Part 3. But it's the slow one where it's showing them and it shows the picture in the desert and everything and the footsteps and all that. That was... It takes a lot for an OP or an ED to stand out in JoJo's, right? Because they're all wonderful. But that one still stands out to me to this day, right? It communicated so well over this long journey that was, a little bit repetitive for me in some parts, right? Where I was wanting to get to the end of it, where I was saying, no. You're going to be when you get to the end, you're going to be like, wow, I went on a journey. Yeah. But you're also going to very much wish that you could maybe go back to those happier times when everyone was present.
You're not talking about Walk Like Egyptian. You're talking about the next
one. No, I'm not talking about Walk Like an Egyptian.
Gotcha.
Was Walk Like an Egyptian before this one?
That was the first one, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. People in chat are saying that that's the last train home. Yeah, that's the second ED.
Okay, last train home. Yeah. It's so sad. And I love sad EDs, especially when there's a foreboding. It helps build that foreboding sense of, oh God, what's going to happen to these characters as I grow more attached to them.
Yes. The distance of time, though, between the next death in Part 3 and Abdul's death is... It's a long time. It's a long time. It's after Abdul comes back. That's how long it is before the next death.
We have plenty of time to get used to his death and then get used to the fact that characters are going to die so that by the time he comes back, it doesn't completely shift our perspective on the stakes of the situation.
Right. And in the meantime, I think Araki, much like maybe his own experience writing this and stuff, got lulled into the adventure. And had so much fun just goofing off and enjoying this whole thing. You remember the Oingo Boingo episodes?
Oh, man.
That is just so much fun. The fact that those characters existed in JoJo's and we got to experience not really that our bros ever really knowing that they were there. Just kind of...
Don't need to.
Whole Horse was more aware of what was going on than they were. That... whole thing was just pure comedy. It was wonderful.
Absolutely excellent.
But that's just one of the little encounters throughout this. We had the Darby gambling mini little encounter.
Mr. Joester.
It was both threatening, terrifying, but also one of the most over-the-top, exciting ways to see how Jotaro's steely-eyed stare could be used in a way that wasn't just kind of he was there, or he was gonna beat the shit out of the actual most petty part 3 villain.
No, the love one.
Lovers. I just Steely Dan.
That's
exactly. Right. Yep. Exactly. I think some of the best moments actually in Part 3 are the moments where we either have a horrendously emotional loss. Or Jotaro actually opens his mouth and gives some pretty good dialogue.
Sure.
And it's those moments where I've got them emblazoned into my mind as the feeling of what it gave me when Jotaro's like, all right, now I can cut loose on you.
Yeah. Or when he's like, just like the rest. Seemed pretty badass and tough at the beginning. Turns out, just another dumbass.
Yep.
The Sun one, that was one of those other ones where I was like, yeah, no, they're kind of screwed here. How are they going to get out of this?
And then they start laughing.
And then they start laughing, and I'm like, okay. And the actual explanation of how they get out of that is one of the most all right, that's almost Part 2 levels of dumb. So you're telling me he was following you with the mirror so that you wouldn't be able to see it. Okay, all right, sure, why not?
I think that when you think about Part 3, you don't think about the details. But when you look at some of the details, you're like, oh, this is quite good. It's the fact that the feeling was that our boys went on a journey. They had a solid why as to why they were doing this. They had a lot of good moments along the way. And yes, it was a bit too long. It dragged on quite a bit. And there were a few episodes that are just plain awkward. I cannot rewatch a couple episodes of part 3.
I'm really curious what the other ones were.
Well, the other one is not as awkward. It's just Alessi.
Is that
Alessi? Yep. Yeah.
Is that the when Polnareff
turns into a kid?
Oh no, but that is also one of the most hilarious.
It's comedy. Yeah.
Polnareff as an adorable little kid. And him being like, ooh, how can I get closer to this hot lady? But, you know, he's been reduced to being a 4-year-old with buck teeth. Yeah.
But that's one of the episodes, along with the one episode that's also just kind of cringe, with the boat and the gorilla.
I remember thinking so much that she was going to be a core character of the Joe Bros, and she was.
I did too.
And they were going to do some skip 15 years later, and her and Jotaro were going to get together or something. Because it's easy to forget that Jotaro is, after all, only 17.
Yeah. Remember Anne? Who? What? So part 3, as a whole, I would say is kind of unique in that it's also two kind of, a 3/4 part and a quarter part. When they actually get to Egypt and Dio unleashes a new wave of minions.
Yeah, everything kind of changes there.
And they actually start encountering, Dio's, lair, and things start to slow down in terms of the pacing, but in terms of the actual, not the pacing, things start to slow down in universe. The hours are actually counted as meaningful hours. We have some really intense encounters. And from
Sans
Vanilla,
one.
yes. But Vanilla Ice was not a character that I remember fondly as a character, but it was the actual threat that he represented.
Like, do you remember when he just kept kicking Iggy?
Yep. So Pepperidge Farms remembers.
Like, Araki doesn't like dogs. I get that.
No. That's not true.
No, I know.
He wants to use dogs as a method to showcase that his villains are pure evil.
Exactly. It's probably actually that he likes dogs.
He loves dogs.
He loves dogs, and that's why he's like, the worst thing that a villain could ever do is hurt a dog. Yeah, right. But he's mean to dogs in his stories.
No, he lets his villains be mean to dogs.
Sure.
Separate the author from the created work.
I know. But the idea that, like, all right, villains killing dogs in some pretty grotesque ways. I'm used to that, I feel like. Like, it's not gonna hurt too much. But then it's like, he's not making them explode in blood or whatever, right? Like, he's just having a guy kick a dog.
I think that,
again and again.
Yeah. I think that the hopeless nature of the Vanilla Ice fight was more brutal in a lot of ways than Kakyoin's death, because it's slow.
Yeah,
there's a lot of moments that are quick in JoJo's where a death is so sudden that you don't even have time really to feel anything other than just the gaping hole in your chest of your character getting ripped from you.
Right.
Abdul dies quite quickly in that fight when he gets attacked. Yeah. But there's this uneasiness of whether or not he's actually dead. It's not until the actual end of the fight that you're confirmed that he's actually dead.
Right.
Iggy and Polnareff, these two characters that don't like each other. By the way, Iggy was sold so well as being kind of a gag character in the beginning that when we got to Pet Shop and we started to emotionally really freak out about the idea that this dog could get hurt, when the dog is now defending and helping his guy that he would just fart in the face of before. It's just a simple little gesture of him being able to actually work with him, but because they're fighting for their survival, this is something they must do. I really feel like it captured what made part 3 special, was that we didn't get actually that deep into many of the characters in part 3. Only a few of them got really hard characterization. But the fact that they went through so much to get through this whole adventure allows us to imprint in our mind this idea of them struggling and overcoming.
Right.
And that cycle constantly being used over and over again to only have some of them not overcome the struggle, it hurts.
Yeah.
So when that fight ends, I remember my heart was just torn in half.
Well, and I think that's actually, now that I think about it, I think that's something that Araki very intentionally improved upon in Part 5, since Part 5 had a very similar structure to Part 3 overall.
It was quite similar.
Because one of the things that was a constant in Part 3 is that it had to be one person fighting the enemy stand.
Yep.
Because it's not heroic to have two people go against one guy, right? Totally get that. But because of that, I feel like we didn't get as much of showing them actually interacting, even though we had a lot of episodes, until like the later parts, or when we had those little in-between bits, right? Them sitting around the campfire and what was Death 13, I believe, was the name of the stand?
With the dream, the stand.
Yeah, the dream and the baby and the poop and everything.
Yeah.
Whereas then in Part 5, that ended up being something where it would be like, say, two of them going on this particular stand battle, and then we can see them interacting and seeing them depending on each other and growing and all that stuff in some really cool ways.
Yeah, the Polnareff Abdul one in the beginning was kind of a 2v2,
right? And that's I think one of the things that made it so good, in addition to just the fact that, you know, at least from what we could see at that point, Abdul died.
But the Vanilla Ice fight kept the group dynamic going on there even after Abdul was killed. And this is all pre-Dio, so we haven't actually bumped into Dio, but the presence and delivery of the lines, I really do have to give credit to more of the production and the voice acting kind of stuff with regards to Dio, because everything involving the guy, the music, the actual like, you know, visuals to display him when he's like enshadowed at the top of the stairs, and then the goddamn voice acting of Dio all makes him so much more than what he is. And and in my opinion, you're right. Like, the idea of Part 1 being the best Dio we got, but having it still there to contrast where Dio's at in Part 3 makes his hammed over the top delivery something that we we love that much more. The goddamn fog machines. Yes, exactly. So Part 3's kind of extended finale, it has a little bit of a vibe of, you know, finales like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where it's not a finale fight, it's like a finale sequence. You know, it starts with them getting to the tower and, you know, realizing that he's going to be in there, and then when they open, there's like basically like
he's not there.
He's not there, and the coffin like opened all of a sudden, and it's just like this. Wait,
what happened?
Hold on, we're in over
can't
our
go
head.
Upstairs. What's going on?
And then the whole thing basically starts. Just I remember that was a good 5 or 7 episodes, I think.
It was a decent amount of time.
It was a really good chunk of time. I want to say it was more like 5 or 6 episodes.
I don't remember exactly how many episodes it was, but given that the show in Part 3 had been so much about the hijinks and about the bombastic, just creative direction of all these stands, when we finally get to the end of Part 3, it's just a raw beatdown. Dio is invincible. He cannot be stopped. And serve up your leg to me like you're a waiter bringing me the finest caviar.
Yes. Oh my God. The specific descriptions of things and, you know, what have you to describe. Stuff. Oh my God.
30 millimeter machine gun could pierce this many centimeters of reinforced steel at this distance.
The analogies, they're so wonderful. But I remember the terror of, okay, I think we've figured out what his stand does, and we're basically like, it's something we can't really be. And the way they set up Kakyoin to figure it out, to die, and to have all this just come to a point where this character, who I would have liked more development for, I would have liked a little bit more time with them.
We
get the sudden backstory, realizing, okay, well, it's time for him to die.
I would have liked to see more of why everyone referred to Kakyoin as the MILF Hunter. I would have liked to have understood that more. And looking back, it's because why did he actually, join Jotaro to stop Dio? But, we didn't get that.
No.
And that's sad.
Oh, thanks for the reminder. The mayor, yes. Or was he a mayor or was he a congressman or something like that?
Yeah, I think he was a congressman, right?
Yeah. That whole sequence to build up the terror
Senator,
of Dio.
that's right.
Senator, that's who it was. Yeah. Senator Phillips, absolutely. All this to build up Dio was fantastic. But Kakyoin's scene where they have him set the trap so we can figure out what his stand does.
Yep.
And the choice to have, instead of showing it from Dio's perspective then, and have him use Zawardo and show exactly what happens. Instead, we just basically see him go Zawardo and Kakyoin gets pulverized. The sound effect goes off.
Yep.
But it's very quick and it's only in the moment where we see him go flying back.
Yeah. And
in that moment, we're just like, well,
okay, all right, that's it. That didn't work. Just like the Emerald Splash.
Yeah. I don't think in previous fights had we seen a Jobro get one-shotted like that, but without any fight buildup,
Yeah, because like there was that little bit where he was, oh no, he can deflect the Emerald Splash, but like that wasn't really fighting.
I guess you're right. That is part of the fight. Yeah, because it was an example of where they were testing out the range of his stand and what he could do.
Right.
But it did feel like once the actual fight had been set on both terms where they were both willing to engage each other, because Dio was at the moment just kind of deflecting things.
And very much on the
making
defensive.
A mockery of the Emerald Splash. I guess
it was super sudden. Like
it was it was super sudden.
Because they're like, as much as there were a few ass pulls in part 3, with some of the stands that we faced along the way, right?
Of course,
they were definitely there, right?
But it's JoJo's,
But it's JoJo's, and that's part of the fun. There was this aspect though of, no, we need to actually figure this out, right? We can't just bullshit our way through this, right? We need to actually be logical about this, get technical. What's his stand? What's its range? If we figure this out, maybe we can beat him. Because everything up till now, everyone's been saying, no, there's no way you can beat him. And even just Vanilla Ice, one of his cronies, wiped the floor with us. So how do we do this?
Yeah, and the one guy that tries to set up a logical trap
doesn't work.
Instantly killed. It's in some ways the idea of, no, your tactics won't matter here. If anything, they will, but they have to be some of the most Joseph-level tactics that Jotaro pulls.
Right.
And I gotta say,
then, that's with time manipulation.
Yeah. Jotaro's little gags are fantastic in the actual encounter with Dio.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the choice to have later, after Kakyoin figures it out, later, they then show what happened from Dio's perspective.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of my favorite little, I guess, I don't know, an editing decision, or I don't know what it would have been like in the
what's the technical
manga
term?
Yeah, but basically to have it just happen instantly here, and then later on in the same episode, we see Dio, do the whole thing, and then we get the full sound effect, we get the full visual there, and it's incredible. A meme was born. And then he just walks up to him or floats over to him, basically. The world just punches out his chest and his stomach, and he's dead.
Even with Caesar, we at least didn't see the dead body. We just knew that he was dead because he got crushed by a big stone cross thing, right? With Kakyoin, it's like, no. We can see exactly just how dead he is.
Oh, so in the manga, it was only shown from Dio's perspective. Then I think David Productions made an amazing choice in doing it that way. Because it's basically saying, hey, you might not have figured it out yet. like we basically had figured it out at that point, but it was just the ultimate confirmation of, oh yeah, that's basically what he did.
Now I'm curious, if that was shown from Dio's perspective, did we also get it from Dio's perspective when he carried Polnareff back down the stairs and set him down and then walked back up?
No.
And making sure to do it in 5 seconds or 8 seconds
After we finished part 3, so many people were sending me things like, see, here's the fan art or the fan animatic of what actually happened from Dio's perspective. And I love the way he would like go back up the stairs and then sit down and be like, and then oh my god. Okay, part 3 ends with also a little bit of the first kind of moment of how crazy stands can be, with the realization of Jotaro has a twin stand basically with the world. He has, because of the lineage, because of the Joestar connection, because of this whole thing, and interpret it how you will, he's able to fight Dio on his terms here. But there is so much time building up to that where Jotaro is just scaring off Dio with some of the most Joseph Joestar bullshit moves.
Yep. Showing that he was learning from Gigi. Even though, he totally didn't love him or anything, but Baka.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably why, for me, the part 3 finale fight is the most iconic fight in JoJo's. Like, just, it is.
Beyond the, ho, you're approaching me.
No, like that's the whole thing. That's all one big thing.
Yeah.
The Jotaro versus Dio fight has so much to it, in that is a part of the fight, yes, but also the same thing of where Dio is like, wait, I should go over and chop his head off.
I don't want to get close.
I don't want to get close.
Yeah.
The fact that Jotaro is like holding his heart with Star Platinum, and then he quickly like starts pumping it again to get himself going there.
Yeah.
Like, the magnet trick. Yep. There were so many things within that were just wonderfully funny and also like tense in a way where you're like, that shouldn't work. Oh wait, but Dio's a paranoid survivor
because he's a coward. So of course, yeah.
So he's like, no.
Wait, didn't I have a laser thing? No.
Well, right. Yeah, presentation. Yeah, the manga in the hat. Absolutely. The fact that he went into the bookstore and stuffed himself with all kinds of things there for the knives. Oh my god. Those were amazing things there. Star Platinum stand ability to teleport within sewers. Yeah.
Well,
Rule of cool. I just like that when they really focused on a specific moment that had back and forth play from Dio and Jotaro, usually they went into then explaining how it went down.
Right.
But for the ones where it was just, no, I did this, and suddenly it just works, then no real explanation.
And let's be real. It would make sense, because with the amount of stands that you fight over the course of part 3 to get to the point where you can fight Dio, that would develop a healthy sense of paranoia and also just, all right, plan for the most obscure, weird shit you can think of.
Yep.
Because it will probably be important.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh yeah, the death of Joseph, that was a dirty trick. Like if not for the fact that Araki had pre-established that he actually literally tells you this person's dead when they die.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, I think that Joseph's death would have been a really somber way to end it, and in some ways make it a lot more like a Clint Eastwood kind of style, kind of Western thing, where I gotta, this world ain't big enough for the two of us. You mean the Zawardo? Shut up, Dio. And have him walk off into the sunset, kind of depressed and alone, and then he just loses himself in marine biology because that's all he has,
Yep. Just trying to remember the days on the submarine.
Yeah, but Araki's like, no, I really like Joseph too much to kill him. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Jotaro's based on Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, we've seen the image of Clint Eastwood doing the Jotaro pose.
Yeah. But part 3 ends. We get to finally have a villain that gets actually killed. Like a main villain, because Cars
stopped thinking.
Yeah, Cars just stopped thinking, but also Joseph didn't really beat him. Joseph
Mother
orchestrated.
Nature, the Earth beat him.
Joseph orchestrated the most obscure, indirect, roundabout, if you will, way to beat his antagonist and stuff. And Jonathan kind of lost, if you will.
He did.
So there's that, and it was a fun beatdown. Also, I don't remember if part 3 was the first one where we started getting battle rushes. But the iconic nature of both characters battle rushing at each other.
And then all of a sudden after that, it's just like, we kind of need to have the main two stands, for the JoJo and the antagonist, do battle rushes at each other, because how can you not at that point?
Oh, you're talking about the overdrives? Oh, okay, gotcha. So that was a thing before. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay. Then that makes sense why Araki brought it back for part 3.
Yeah.
Because it's Dio.
Maybe it just wasn't as memorable with the way it was presented.
Well, it's probably because we didn't care about Jonathan.
I mean, we did care about him, but it was, it's in context,
The biggest attack rush that I can remember from part 1, and I'm not talking about the Thundercross split attack, but I'm talking about the Rose Petals. That was the most memorable attack rush that I can remember.
The Rose Petals?
Yeah, the Rose Petals infused with Hamon, and throwing them all at Dio. And then one of them touches his cheek, and he's like, "You cur! You..." Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Dio went full cat all of a sudden, and basically was like, no, get that shit out of here.
But part 4.
Yes.
Part 4 did something that we hadn't gotten before.
Yeah.
We got a location. We got a place.
That was in and of itself a character, basically.
Yeah. Like, why is that?
Marty.
Yep, that's right.
Good morning, radio.
And
good morning.
And like,
oh my gosh.
Even though Kira didn't actually show up for a long time, and those parts before Kira showed up were probably the weaker parts, as a whole.
I would say it was in between.
Oh yeah,
more like rock paper scissors guy.
Well,
but if anything,
that specifically is definitely.
But if anything, I kind of disagree. I would say part 4 and what makes it so special is they went slice of life with it.
Yes.
There was this idea that you didn't have to have a stand encounter of a specific style.
Right, it
every
didn't have
single
to be a fight
week
necessarily.
Yes, you didn't have to fight. Tonio's restaurant.
Yep.
For instance,
mozzarella and tomatoes
is one of the most genius decisions to basically have Araki go, no, they don't need to be an awful evil person.
Yep.
Now
they're just someone in the town.
Yeah. Every time that they basically had a location kind of inserted and be like, location for Morio number such and such. That is now there. We would see it get referenced later.
Yep.
We would bump into it again. It would get referenced at some point. It made this area feel lived in and like it was real. In part 3, we never spent more than 3 episodes or maybe 5 episodes at a location.
And that was probably one of the biggest things that made it hard to get attached to the characters, even though, because those slice of life moments is when it's just character interactions, right? Yep. And because part 3 was like all stand battle, right? Yep. And solo stand battle. What do you have between these characters to make them care about each other, to make it so that when one of them
the handshake, the fist bump,
which was awesome,
But those are a few seconds in.
Exactly. Those are drops in a very large river.
Right.
Whereas in things like this, we take one character that we meet one random time, and we actually, we grow to care about them and harvest.
Oh my god, actual character development for multiple characters of the main squad in part 4 that aren't even of themselves that deep necessarily as far as characters, but they each learn things. And in some ways that was probably the part that was the weirdest, was Josuke was very different from all the previous JoJos, who were all very extreme examples of a specific archetype.
Yeah.
And Josuke was not extreme.
No.
He was actually
extreme
kind of
about his pompadour, but that was about it.
Yeah, that was more of a a gag. But as far as a JoJo, he was more subtle. Well, he had little specific little idioms and aspects of him. Yeah, he felt like a normal kid, except for the fact that he was like 6'5" and a high schooler.
Right, exactly. But I feel like you can tell that Josuke wasn't even the real JoJo of Part 4 by the fact that Koichi got more like in-depth character focus than Josuke did. And on top of that, when it moves to the next part and you have the JoJo from 2 parts ago and another character talking about the new JoJo, is it the JoJo from the previous part? No, it's Koichi. Because of course it would be, right? He's the one that we're most attached to. We spent the most time with him and things like that. So it's only natural that him and Jotaro are the ones investigating this, son of Dio.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, also, Koichi had some really specific bonding moments with Jotaro.
That is very true.
Part 4.
That is very true.
Near-death experiences and saving each other's asses in very intense stand battles. We'll do that for you.
Yeah, Josuke more got bonding time with Joseph, and I'm not sure if Joseph even remembers that bonding time, much less if Joseph is even still alive by the time that Part 5 comes around.
Right. But Part 4 has another cast of characters that have little bits of continuity, but instead of them being the main focus, it's actually the town.
Yep.
The town is the focus. A character is going on a specific route with their bike or something like that.
Sure.
Someone new comes to the school. They're ending up talking about something at a specific class. Koichi really wants to go see his favorite manga artist.
Or someone gets a crush on Koichi.
These things make the town feel like the characters in them exist because the town reacts and moves around them, and then they also move and react and respond to the changes within the town.
Right. And then that makes it so that when it's not a villain that's going to destroy the world or something, or even your mom's going to die as a result of, the stand stuff and whatnot, right? No, it's something where there's someone that's hurting people in our town. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be people we know.
Yep.
It does end up being people we know, and that makes it even worse, right?
Yep.
But just the fact that it's happening in our home, right? Because it's a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where they don't actually go someplace, right? They stay where they are, and there's power in that, right?
There's a lot of power in that.
And then when Kira starts doing his thing, even if he is just trying to have a peaceful, relaxing life.
Quiet. I just want to have a nice, quiet life. Yeah.
Yep. Well, sorry. We gotta settle this.
We're gonna have you have a different peaceful, quiet life because the one you're currently doing isn't as peaceful and quiet as you'd think. And I liked that sense of responsibility that the characters slowly took on as they realized that this was happening. There are a lot of fights that actually happen and stand encounters that happen before Kira even shows up. To the point where it actually feels like something that they do end up just casually having in Part 4 with aliens, or maybe an alien. We don't know still to this day. But that it felt like, if anything, a more kind of spooky, supernatural events happening in the town, and we don't know why.
Right.
And they explain it with the stand arrow and stuff there. But Kira is just another one of those characters when he's introduced.
Yep.
We don't initially think he's the biggest bad or something, because there's no meta thing that makes it like that until
we did get the thing at the very beginning, which is something that I did appreciate.
Yes, that's true.
Since Part 4 was going for a more slice of life approach, having the reminder at the very beginning that there is a big bad villain in this story was very helpful, so that we know that's coming eventually, even if it's not necessarily going to be the focus right now.
Right. Yeah.
So that did help.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing is that when I say a big bad, he isn't really a big bad in this idea that he's a final boss.
Right. He's got a busted stand, but
even then his stand's not that strong actually for the majority of the earlier parts there. If anything, it's just that a lot of the characters just don't know who he is, so they don't interact with him much. But but like those Kira hints were anime only editions. Yeah, that's one of the things that when we finished part 4, a lot of people were passing on to me that part 4 was probably the most dramatically redone by things like the Blu-ray edits, for one, and then also from within the actual adaptation of the original manga.
Gotcha.
What do you mean? Sheer Heart Attack has no weakness.
But like, as far as villains go, I feel like Kira, he was a lot more personal, right? Because it's in the town and not, you know, Dio off in Egypt, right?
He's human.
He's human, which helps a lot.
He has a vice that is disgusting.
Yes, but more so than that, I feel like it's the fact that we got a first-person perspective of him for a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Because even with Dio in part 3, the few times that we would see him, it wasn't a first-person perspective, not really. It would always be like Enya or Whole Horse or whatever, someone interacting with Dio. Yeah. And that still worked for what it was. It gave Dio that presence, right? But it didn't make us really be invested in what happened with him. It just made us want to see him. With Kira, because we got to see him not even interacting with anyone else, really, just going about his daily life. You know, I'm Kira Yoshikage. I'm 33 years old. I'm in bed by 8 or whatever, you know, all that stuff. That's something where then it's like, oh yeah, this is a person. This is a sick, twisted person that kills people and all that stuff. But this is a person.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And that, I will always care more about conflicts with people than conflicts with forces. Conflicts with forces can definitely work. They have their place.
Battle company.
But
hey, it technically is a force. You know?
It is a force. It is a force. Yeah. But the thing is, it's a force acting on behalf of an individual.
Right.
and stands most of the time don't talk anyways. That's true. You know,
that's true.
With
there are some exceptions.
There are some notable exceptions. Yeah.
But yes, Kira is a person that has limitations. It is not based on how sweeping his power is and what is he capable of. We know not only because of the fights we do see him in eventually in the beginning, or more like around the third of the way point through the part, we end up seeing, because of his first person perspective, you know, focus, the things he cannot do.
Right.
The things he is actually incapable of doing. So, in a weird way, Araki gets you every once in a while to root for him.
Yep.
Not necessarily for specific things that he does, but in the idea that he is trying to overcome struggle.
Yeah.
And it's something that has nothing to do with Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi.
Yep.
Sometimes it does, because, hey, they took his sandwich, or they thought they took his sandwich. Or, wait.
No. He took their sandwich. And they took his hand.
Yep.
They took his
girlfriend.
Yeah. But, like, I'll just straight up say it. Even though I definitely wanted to see Kira get defeated. Oh, yeah. Right? I was rooting for him the entire way up to that point.
Oh, for sure.
Like maybe not in Bites the Dust, though, right? Maybe not at that point. But, like, do you remember the part where he's trapped in the equipment locker in, like, the shed at the school, and he's like, well, shit, how do I get out of here, right? And there are so many things that are just going wrong for him.
Right.
Where it's like, all right, of course, yeah, screw you two, man upstairs, whoever is making my life this awful.
Right.
I'm just trying to live my peaceful life, occasionally have a hand job, you know, and that's it, right? Is that too much to ask for?
Yep.
You know? And, yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a time-stopping dolphin lover and a spiky Gohan boy and an ambulance that have some things to say about that.
And places to be.
And Pink Floyd references.
Yep.
But yes. Jacob, please. Super Moto Man with the 100 bits. Part 4 is my favorite part because of Josuke, Kira, and Koichi, and Jotaro. Kira is my favorite villain because he's strangely sympathetic in a messed up way, and I love his stand. Josuke is my favorite JoJo because, in my opinion, he felt the most real and most complex one of them. Also, his stand is up there as one of my favorites. Yeah, Crazy Diamond and Josuke are fantastic.
It was used to some wonderfully
genius ways.
Yep.
Yeah. part 4 also is another one of those like part 3, where it has a very clear final part within the part.
Yes.
And that is when Kira gets upgraded, if you will, and introduces something that will be more delved into in part 5. But that moment of realization that suddenly the whole show changed, and now we're in a time loop.
Yep.
And how can we actually move forward here and progress?
And again, developing one of the side... keep going.
I just wanted to say that whole feeling was handled brilliantly. There were some little hiccups in the middle of it, but with Hayato being involved in the story and the whole family dynamic that had been set up previously, it was amazing.
Like, that's just another example where Araki took a side character that had been sort of kind of introduced, I suppose.
Yeah.
Gave them more focus, fleshed them out as a person, and had the conflict revolve around them and their struggle, right? He did that with, I can't believe I keep forgetting his name, but Harvester. Shigechi. Yep. I was remembering right as you said it. But like, Araki did that. Harvester! Yeah. He did that all over part 4, right?
Yep.
And it worked. So much so that he did it with a villain, right? But that's something that I would love to see more of that in future parts. Like the stuff that we got in part 5 with the squad and everything, absolutely fantastic. But like, I would love to see some more surprise characters.
Yeah, definitely. I have spent a decent amount of time listening to myself do the Shigechi voice.
Oh, yeah?
And if I do it enough times, I can get a pretty decent impression going for the kid. I do think that as a character, he was just getting interesting by the point when they decided to kill him off. When Araki decided to kill him off. Shigechi's end, though, and the fact that he did cause Kira actual problems by being who he was, I think was important to showcase the friendship that he did develop with, Josuke and Okuyasu. Because, one, he had no idea what he was getting into, and yet you could tell that he didn't care exactly. Like, it was something where he knew this was the right thing to do. And this was someone who didn't really care about what was the right thing to do before Josuke and Okuyasu.
Like, they met getting change that had been thrown away, using his stand ability to make a quick buck. Like, that screams bored teenagers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's... As far as bonding moments to make people be like, yes, I will do the thing and I will make sacrifices and that's not exactly the kind of thing that most people would expect.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like it's important that it was something like that. One, because Shigechi didn't really have too many friends, so there's more power to something like that. But just in general, that slice of life is important, right? Danger and fights and crazy hijinks and all that stuff, that's good too. But sometimes just being like, you know what? I think we can make $10 today. Let's do that.
Yep.
Want to help us out with that?
God, it's so relatably stupid and fun. Yep. It's perfect.
That's exactly what I would expect people that are actually 17 and under to do.
Oh yeah.
Less what Jotaro and Giorno end up doing at their respective ages.
Yeah, Jotaro gets dragged along for a really long trip with his grandpa where he's overdressed for the entire time. Well, most of the time.
Right.
And Giorno has a dream. So
yeah. Because was Giorno 15 or 16?
Well, hold on. We're talking about part 4. Part 4.
That's right.
So when we get into Bite Zadasto, I think Araki came close to realizing that, oh my god, stands don't have to be a dead end. And yeah, it's not a requiem. I was never saying it was a requiem. I saw someone say in chat, like, no, it's not a requiem. I'm not saying that. Requiems are its own thing that we don't even fully understand at this point yet. But the idea that we could take a stand that was already in and of itself seeming to break the mold by having an ability that was like an extension of itself, like come off of it, and then have another ability within it because of some funky interactions with the stand arrow. that was really terrifying because it was basically a form of world building of saying, oh, no, stands can get far crazier. It's like stopping time? Psh, please.
Basic.
That's
Juvenile.
basic. Yeah, absolutely. We can get far more complex and ridiculous.
With how we use time manipulation. Specifically time manipulation. Yeah. One of these days we will end up getting a final boss stand that doesn't have anything to do with mucking with time.
Well, I mean, but yeah, I think it's also kind of the joke of if you wanted to be really like, you know, kind of basic with it, time is the highest dimension that we can interact with.
Oh yeah,
in any way, shape, or even perceive.
Right. There's no beating it really.
Well, right, but is Araki supposed to make up dimensions just to surpass time?
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess that's basically the joke of it, is that Araki's eventually just going to go way crazier with that. Part 4 ends also in a very sudden way, and yet it was also something that was built up with regards to the alley and the little bits of continuity with regards to these special locations within the town, the spiritual element, the whole thing of the soul, and Kira's end
was quite a twist.
Yeah, just was an amazing twist.
I was waiting for an opening for that.
That was so good. The fact that he died that way, but we got to see more beyond that, I think makes his defeat rivaling like some of the best like defeats of characters in JoJo's. I don't know if it's the ultimate
double tap. Like, I mean, maybe not the ultimate, but that's one hell of a double tap.
Right. Yeah. Rohan is one of those characters that I definitely appreciated, but he's not like a huge point of discussion for me in my mind when thinking about the part as a whole.
Yeah, like he was a ton of fun.
He was a very charismatic side character that is rare, I would say, for JoJo's in general to have a dish like that many of them in part 4. Like to have Koichi being kind of the main side character, and then to have, you know, Joseph come back, to have Kira kind of being a main side character in that regard.
Okuyasu's along for the ride.
Well, yeah, but then to have this other character that's just there in the town.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Part 4, I like it, I would say, more and more the more I think back on specifically stuff regarding the end and basically everything to do with Kira. But it also kind of has the part 3 problem where you could see Araki kind of meandering a little bit because it's slice of life.
And that's where I feel like part 5 really shines.
Yep.
Because even if part 5's ending, say, wasn't quite as good as some of the other parts, I don't think I've ever been so entertained with something that I knew was being episodic. Like intentionally episodic. No discussion or question about it, right? Absolutely being episodic.
Because Araki just nailed the episodic adventure part.
He really did.
In part 5. That's what he did. He basically took the JoJo squad adventure, made some lovable idiots, basically. I call them the lovable idiot brigade fated to die. That's the libfated. Yeah.
Yeah.
The lib fated. I got fated in there somehow.
Right.
But basically these lovable idiots all band around a character with a dream and a mom that loves them all very dearly. And they head gleefully towards death. And on the way, have some amazing one-off stand encounters.
Oh yeah.
And that's I'd say the best thing about part 5 was the presentation of these incredible stand encounters. The actual villain squad, the assassin group there, amazing.
Like
actually like finally got that down.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that in part 3. I was like, wait, why hasn't this happened yet?
I feel like that might have been Araki basically saying, okay, the slice of life and everything and the development for the side character stand users that we meet in part 4, because it's Morio, the town, is what's important. That's cool. That was great. I love that. Given that I'm not, it's kind of a town thing, but not really.
Not really.
How do I still have that?
So we have a country, okay, so it's a little bit bigger.
Right, and there's the whole idea of, the mafia and everything, and the squad of the boys, right?
Yep. So it's all umbrellaed very nicely.
Yes.
Yep.
But then taking that surprise side character development and applying it to the antagonists.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes,
and thank
please.
you. Like, because then it's something where I feel like this is almost like the sports anime kind of style, where because that somehow the main characters are going to win at least the early fights and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then you want to make it so that then when the opponent is defeated, you feel for the opponent.
Yes.
Right? Because you're like, oh, damn. All right. I actually was starting to care about them. But yeah, these our main boys are the ones that are going to win in the end. Okay.
And as far as actual, like, kind of setup for that, having the big dumb, teenage group of boys all together, like, talking shit to each other, having a good old fun time, then actually encountering real killers, and then we get to realize, oh, our boys are killers as well.
Yes.
They
will gang up and kick somebody repeatedly.
Oh my God.
Because, of a rude comment.
One of my favorite scenes in part 5 as a whole, just accentuated because of how many times I've seen that gif, is them beating on the guy in the outside the cafeteria with the Narancia and I believe it was Mista. Yeah.
Yep.
And then Bakio just sitting there, sips his wine, and then he just kind of sits there for a second, and then we see him next just kicking into the guy as well. Just saying that, yes, he might be the oldest of the squad, but he is not above just absolutely laying into a guy. It was so much fun to see their dynamics just played out and taken for a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, I would say, again, Araki, has to figure out kind of the balance of developing a squad of characters versus, 1 or 2 individuals within the actual squad. Because, certain ones of them either had to exit the story quite quickly, for reasons, Fugon,
right,
or they were the main character and they got a lot of their development in the beginning, and then later it's like, well, we don't have as much time actually to get into their character in the future, so we're going to spend a lot more time developing the other characters, and thus Bruno and Mista kind of become the best of the actual squad. Like, Narancia is a very adorable boy as well. And Bakio might
I can't place Mista above Narancia. I love them both to death. But
see, that's the thing. I think everyone ends up loving one of the main characters of the squad, like, slightly differently than everyone else. And that's kind of fun. Like,
because it doesn't need to necessarily be carried by the JoJo, right?
Yep.
As wonderful as Joseph is, not every JoJo needs to be a Joseph. That would be wonderful. But if you can make it be something where we care about the other characters surrounding them as well, then, because I feel like that was where we were able to be a lot more scared about the outcomes of different fights. Because we knew, okay, they're going to end up going against the mafia, right? This mob group, Passione. So it isn't going to end well, right? We've seen what this group does to people that betray them, right? They've been fighting some of them. But since we get all this time focusing and developing and stuff, the characters besides Giorno, since we know that Giorno's going to be okay, right? What's going to happen to these boys?
Yeah.
Because we all kind of know deep down that
at least some of them have to die.
Yeah.
I think that the part that still kind of, like, gives me shock in a lot of ways is because of how the whole Fugo thing was kind of awkwardly done. His was also kind of a death in that regard. That he never, spoke to Narancia again after that.
Like he was not shown at the end when, Giorno was having all the capos come and, pledge their fealty.
Yeah, we can just assume where he was in the story at any point, and it's fine. But the idea that, he wasn't there for Narancia's death, that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Then we have a Bakio, who was probably one of the quickest turns in my mind from going from, oh, you're the petty, protective older brother kind of character, to, oh my god, I love your backstory so much. I love your characterization for this. You are the traumatized sheepdog. You are the German shepherd that wanted to be a good boy and do what's right and do everything there, but you weren't treated right. So, yeah, when he had his death, also in his moment beyond death, where he was thinking back to that bit there, that moment I think was so well done and efficient that I didn't need more from a Bakio to understand him. I feel like that's what Araki did. Despite what you might say about the pacing of the actual plot and all the other stuff of how things moved from place to place and things like that.
The number of days that actually transpired over the course of the story.
Yeah, all that stuff. The actual little moments that he did to make sure that each character got some characterization. Some of them are just gonna hit you harder than you would expect. And I think that was really powerful for a lot of them. And I do have my favorites of the group. But I have to give Araki credit for that, as you see him moving forward as a creator with regards to this. But part 5 has some really good stand fights. Like what are some of your highlight stand fights?
Grateful Dead and Metallica.
Oh,
there were a lot of really good ones, but Grateful Dead and Metallica. Those were
Pesci and Prosciutto in general. That whole little mini arc on the train was probably one of the best. Yeah. Yep. What are some of yours, guys? Metallica was the best. Giacchio for you. Yeah. The whole train encounter in general was so much fun. And I really feel like that's also because of how good Pesci and Prosciutto are in terms of characters of the Hitman Squad. Like, they had not just an individual character brought into this, but they had a dynamic. And it was something that Araki did with other members of the Hitman Squad as well, and they would have a dynamic that they would come in together, but theirs was something something really special there.
Because you could tell that they cared about each other. As much as there were maybe some rough edges, they did care. And one of the best ways you can make an audience care about a character is to show the other characters within this story that they care about and that care about them. Right?
Yeah.
And that Araki did it especially well there. But he did it well throughout pretty much the entire part, I feel like.
Going over my analysis, or our analysis of Prosciutto. It's one of those ones where we're looking back at the actual episode again. I think that was one where, because of the fact that there was some dysfunction in the relationship in general, it was something where it was easy to vilify Prosciutto rather than looking at it through a more kind of nuanced angle. And I think that kind of makes sense in a lot of ways. But it was something that they cleared up definitively where the actual relationship dynamics worked once we got to the final bits of the actual fight and we saw Pesci taking action and being a proactive participant in the fight. And that was really good.
And I would say the whole projecting thing, there is ways that people project when they don't care about you, or when they, they're wanting to put you down or something like that, right? When they're more thinking about themselves. And then there's projecting that they do when they're thinking about you, but they have their own past experiences or whatever, and they have their way that they see things, so they only have a particular way of communicating their care to you.
Right. It's the ways in which a person is limited in actually communicating how they really feel. Or, in some ways, the idea that it could be misconstrued by someone looking on from the sidelines is that the actual way that they're communicating things is a little bit actually layered so that it's not easy to determine on the first bit there, because they're not fully comfortable saying it so directly and honestly.
Yep.
So, yeah. With a couple of the other ones, yes, I totally agree. Formaggio's fight with Narancia was hilarious. That was so excellent. Good. I have purged a little bit from my mind the bottle encounter part of it because, reasons.
What was that one called? Big Feet or
Little Feet?
Little Feet. That's Little right. Feet. Yeah, Little Feet. Yeah. That one was hilarious.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Once we got though to the boss, part 5 had done a really good job of building up the boss. Mm-hmm. But once Bruno bumped into him in the basement, I think that was where part 5 just kind of rolled its shoulders and was like, how'd you like to be terrified of a stand again? Like, how'd you like to be terrified of a stand in a way that you have no idea what it's doing exactly?
We're going to make it so hard to explain how this stand works and how terrifying it is that, you'll get fan translations of it just works. Right?
Well, I think they did a really good job in the anime of explaining actually how it worked rather quickly, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. For the most part.
I feel like it was something where I didn't understand it even when they explained it, but then as it sort of went on, I was like, oh, okay, this must be how it works. Like, I got a feel for it rather than, like, the actual explanations. Did it for me. But
because I remember rather quickly it being, like, maybe an episode or two where we were like, wait, what? And then broke it down a little bit. And it did a pretty good job of explaining it. Eventually, it doesn't work in the anime either, though. It has a ton of inconsistencies. Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and watch the episode. But
like,
yeah,
the whole idea that we have an early encounter there, much in the same way with like Kira, for instance, which is something that would have, like, if
that would have helped part 3 a lot.
That would have helped part 3 a lot. Like, I know that there in part 1 it had to be kind of contrived of why Dio didn't just kill Jonathan earlier, right?
Yep.
But then it can become something personal. And the fact that Diavolo, 1, almost killed Trish, but 2, actually killed Bucciolati. Like, the mom, right? And you know that nothing's going to be the same after this, right? Even if Fugo had, stuck around or had left or had come back, and fought with Diavolo or whatever, like, that was a turning point. That was a point of no return where all of a sudden everything has changed, right? And as far as ways to make a villain terrifying, there's the actual power, which is terrifying, right? But then there's how we see it used for the first time. And I feel like that's even more terrifying because we know that eventually Bucciolati's going to go.
Right. It was specifically on Bruno when he got basically teleported behind Nothing Personal Kid, right? Yeah. So that scene was fantastic, but also using it as a framework to say a line in the sand is drawn. Who's going with us on the bizarre adventure? And we think in our mind, okay, what's the sequence in which all these characters are going to jump on the boat? We don't think that anyone's not going to jump on the boat. Someone didn't get on the boat. And I still think that while was a dead-end plot line in a lot of ways, that was one of the moments that I feel like cemented the stakes of part 5 a lot more than previous parts, was a character giving up and saying, no, I want to live. I'm not going to do this. And I don't know. I think that's it works pretty well if you don't, think about it too much in terms of the story plotting for future stuff. Yeah, Fugon. Yeah. I also really loved Narancia's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The reason I did this is because 2 people didn't get on the boat. And before that, I probably would have said that Mista was my other favorite besides Bruno, right? Of the original squad.
Yeah.
Not counting Giorno.
But yeah. Oh. Yeah, I love that feeling.
I really feel like it's too easy in stories to get sort of caught up in the what's expected. The idea that the writer and the readers or the audience know that this is a story, right?
Yep.
That these are characters and they're gonna do the thing and go the distance or whatever, even if it ends up taking a bad turn at the end, right? But having it be something where no, this is not the smart option to go after this guy, right? And Fugo doesn't go with them. Yeah, that's the smart option.
Yep.
But to see Narancia so torn like that, like, the human heart in conflict with itself is the only thing worth writing about. And I love Mista.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's ride or die. Bruno's going, he's going, right?
As long as he's not the fourth person to jump on.
As long as he's not the fourth person, right? I love it. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that hits so much harder when you see the person that wants to. They really, really want to, but they just can't. How? This is suicide. What? But I can't deal with the fact that now, if I decide to do the smart thing, or if I decide not to do the smart thing, either way, I'm losing people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Narancia, when he jumped into the water and swam after them, Fugo was not going along.
Nope.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and that's, like, JoJo's, even as ridiculous as it is sometimes, it's about teenagers. It's about it's about young people, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big things about growing up is coming to that part where you're able to make the decision of when you can't have both.
Right. You have to jump into the water and risk drowning.
You have to choose one thing, and that means not choosing another thing.
Yeah.
And that can be really, really hard, especially if your heart is really in it, right? And you don't know. But that's why the decision's important. That's why it's powerful. So that scene of Narancia crying and swimming after them, I can't think about that scene without choking up because how many of us have had situations like that where we hesitated? Maybe we didn't, or we didn't even have the courage to actually swim after the boat because deep down we knew it was already too late. Who knows, right? Yeah.
I really do feel like the emotion for a lot of the characters' actual decisions in part 5 were in some ways maybe not Bakio's death, but were more emotional actually than the deaths in a lot of ways. Like the ways that Narancia reacted to things like Bakio's death or to the decision to have to, go after them and stuff. I feel like those were some of the hardest scenes to watch and not like choke up inside. And in part 5, as it gets more and more intense, and then we get into moments where the characters are starting to drop and we're losing people one at a time, and it's there's freaking Silver Chariot Requiem like going around and the world's ending and everything is going crazy. Some of my favorite moments are still just the momentary little bits of tense interaction where a character makes a choice that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with a fight or a death or something like that. Doppio is, in my opinion, one of the greatest examples of that. I think Doppio, as a concept and as a character, even though he just gets deleted eventually, when he was there, and when his dynamic was being involved with something, there was one of the coolest things about part 5 as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The actual specific like favorite scenes and stuff like that are like the things with Risotto, where he's trying to keep calm and navigate the whole situation there. Just interacting with the boss and having civilians who are just like, what the heck? What are you doing? And then he freaks out, and unleashes all of his frustration there when he actually gets introduced, where he goes to the fortune teller. Rest in peace, Doppio.
If I had to choose one thing to change about part 5, right, like say Fugo coming back later, or maybe the ending being a little bit better, or even making characters not die, I mean, I guess this technically counts as having a character not die, but really it would just be that I would have wanted Doppio's arc to fully resolve.
Sure.
Like because man, that was something that was so, it wasn't just enticing as a concept, right? It was something that felt inherently tied to the themes of the part.
Sure.
Right? The person that basically doesn't have a home and needs a family.
Yep.
Right? And he doesn't have a good one right now, really. Mm. But what if maybe there could, even if it doesn't end up happening, there could be the idea of that get brought up, right? Like,
I feel like that's why we wished for so long that Doppio would end up finding a way to get into the Joe Bros squad if he could be free from Diavolo.
Yeah.
And even though over the course of the show we started to realize, the bridge between Diavolo and Doppio is not one where one is all good and the other is all evil.
Mm-hmm.
It's very mixed.
Oh, yeah.
Doppio is capable of some really awful things, and Diavolo has some very unnerving but nurturing, care for Doppio.
Well, and that's...
It's a very, very unique and interesting relationship, and yet we were basically praying, just please, if this boy can just be free.
Yep.
Oh.
Because they both did messed up stuff.
Yeah.
But so did the Joe Bros.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have seen it.
Or maybe the rest of the group didn't.
Or maybe the rest of the group didn't see it.
Your banana is now a gun.
Right.
That was badass, though.
That was badass, right? But they still did it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. There was a whole lot of time where even if they had found their family with, Bruno, they were still doing the mafia stuff. Maybe they weren't actually selling drugs to kids or whatever.
Right.
But they were going around killing people and things. That's, not very different from the kind of stuff that Doppio did. And if I could have had a moment where they get the chance to sit down and talk for a little bit, at a time when it's all the cards are on the table and they're not immediately trying to kill each other,
right?
I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, just buy some pasta.
Yep,
buy some pasta. Go take him out for food.
I feel like collectively kick a customer or whatever outside a cafe. Bond over that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Your gun is now a banana. Yes. You're right. It's the other way. Yes. The highlight kind of little moments throughout part 5, I would say, were also things like the humor, the actual finishing moves for a bunch of the fights. Arrivederci. The ridiculously long muda to defeat Cioccolata.
Giorno, it's too intense.
Oh, love me, mister. Oh, mister. Oh my God. Yes. There were so many wonderful standout moments within that. But by the time part 5 ends and we brought up to the idea that fate was an underlying theme throughout the part, it's a bold move. It's a bold move, Araki. I give you props for going for something different. I haven't gone back and tried to analyze part 5 along those themes to see how much it actually correlates specifically. But in some ways, I'm sure there's something there. I'm sure there's probably a bit. But I think that the idea of family and the idea of that whole camaraderie being something that they lost along the way, meaning that they had a newfound family and that we brought Trish into the dynamic. But it's really just Trish, Mista, and Giorno at the end. And Giorno gets to fulfill his dream, but it's kind of like the at what cost kind of thought.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like is bold because it's not a happy ending then. You could view how it's a happy ending in that the people that died got to fulfill their dream also in some way. But that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool for the most part there. Yeah. My favorite part 5 themes are Bakio versus Diavolo, doing it properly versus taking shortcuts, and sleeping slaves of fate. Okay, I like the idea of the doing things properly versus taking shortcuts. That is something that's kind of interesting to think about in terms of how Bruno kind of approaches things. He also kind of exemplifies that, so he's kind of the ideal in Bakio's mind.
Or are you, Lyriat, are you talking about like actual like song themes?
No, they're talking about story themes. Pretty sure.
Probably.
Are you going to get into part 6 predictions or what you would like to see? Not necessarily. We could do maybe like a quick bit. Do you want to do like a quick little part 6 prediction thing there?
Yeah.
Like 20 seconds.
So here's what I want to see. I want to see cross JoJo bloodline interaction.
Cool.
Because this was very separate from the other parts, so I would like to see things where maybe Mista or Giorno or Polnareff as a tortoise, you know, like, rub shoulders with another member of the Jotaro, Josuke, whoever the next JoJo is, or maybe even Joseph. Yeah. What about you?
Part 6. I would very much like to see an entirely new setting. I think for me, the main thing that was something that was consistently well handled across the 2 recent parts was the setting. But I feel like Araki held back a little bit with part 5. And I would love to see him go a little bit back, a little bit more towards part 4 with that. And then I would also like to have a more personal story, if that makes sense. So something that's a little bit more streamlined, not in the sense that pacing wise, like part 5 is manic, going like extremely fast, and in some ways that was almost too fast because it was such a short amount of time and scope. But have something where we get into a little bit of that world building stuff, but it's tied to the setting, but have the story be less about the way that we're interacting with the world, and it's more that we're taking kind of the story in a direction, and the setting is something that maybe is instigating that. I don't know. I don't know.
Favorite parts over the course of the series, like specific little like gags or whatever, like or things like that.
Sure. Like some of my favorite little moments and things like that, where I look back on them and go, "Oh my god, I can't believe like that was happened." One of my favorite things that happened in JoJo's, and it just is just fantastic. I would say the first time Joseph said he was gonna just run away.
Oh yeah. The secret technique.
Yep.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
that was so good.
I want to bring this one up because I feel like it's one that can get overshadowed since it was a long time ago.
Yes.
But
yes, yeah, that was fantastic.
That was it's so easy to lose it amidst all the other wonderful moments in JoJo's. But man, Awaken My Masters.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a song.
Yeah, it is. I've re-listened to it so many times. I don't think I have an actual favorite part. I just think that the final the Egypt arc section of part 3 is my favorite part of JoJo's.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't meaning like part as a whole, like of the 5 parts.
Gotcha.
But like, yeah, just moments more.
Oh, another favorite moment of mine is when the other Darby is like, "Are you going to do your aura at me?"
Yeah,
and he's just like, yes. Like that moment.
Yeah,
that moment was so perfect because it felt so much like a fourth wall breaking thing of you even call it the aura thing,
right?
But like, just yes.
Well, and before then, he was like asking questions that basically are like, "Oh no, but you'll forgive me, right? No. Wait, so you're gonna knock me out?
You're gonna beat me up, or you're gonna right? You're still mad or something?
Yeah, you're still mad. Yes. So, are you going to aura me? Like all this build up because he he can't bear to ask the question and get the answer to the fact that, oh God, I'm going to be pulverized just like those those people I've heard about.
Yeah. Oh, we got some bits I forgot to read off here.
Oh,
yeah. Can we talk about the ideas of fate and how it ran through the characters? How the bosses stand as the antithesis to the Joe Bros' journey, just wanting to skip to his desired outcome without any of the work because they were fated to die according to the last episode, yet still did it anyway. Thanks for the bits, Axiller. I don't really have too much to say on this.
Yeah,
personally,
it's really cool. I like the. It doesn't really directly tie into it, but the way that Diavolo was always like hiding in the shadows and like even as awesome as he looked, right? Like Diavolo with his character design is not the kind of character where you would expect them to be hiding within the shadows. You pose dramatically on the rooftops, my friend. Like, you know, why hide?
Yeah.
So that sort of internal weakness or lack of mental fortitude, you know?
I feel like Bayanor, thanks for the 100 bits. So as a whole, what would you say JoJo's is about, as in thematically? I think in some ways it's about family. I think in terms of actually what it's about how people going through some kind of struggle or journey or adventure together ends up being something that explores how these people can build a family out of it. And in that respect, it's also something that is celebrating people just in general, because of how specific things get with how intelligent I would say a lot of the characters can be just randomly at times, but also just how exciting it is to see a new design, a new look of everything. It's about the art of it all. Like, people are wonderfully crazy, beautiful beings that are impossible to understand sometimes, and yet you just can't help but want to watch, you know, more of this. So yeah, I don't know. That's my take on that.
As for me with favorite parts, trying to filter out recency bias and everything, I think it would start with part 2.
Okay.
Because part 2 is just wonderful. And then after that, I think it'd go part 5. Just because of how good the episode to episode is. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up between part 3 and part 4, but I think part 3 might win out just because of the highs of it. Okay. And then part 1 last.
And Perkins 885 of the 100 bits. I like Diavolo as a concept. He is the devil to Dio's god, hiding in the shadows, whispering evil into the ears of his subordinates who while possessing someone, making them do his bidding. Even when Polnareff was facing him on the stairs, Diavolo was coming up to him as though he was coming up from hell. Yeah, I think the concept of Diavolo is quite good. It's just tricky when it comes to execution a little bit. He's not that high in my mind as far as JoJo villains. Oh, yeah. Did we miss some bits? I'm sorry. Let me go and check this here and see if there's some that I missed. Bayonor's bits was way back when saying, in hindsight, part 1 kind of feels like backstory for Dio once part 3 comes around. Without part 1, Stardust Crusaders falls apart a bit, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That was it. Okay, there you go. What Lariat was talking about, Bakio and his partner in the afterlife, talking about the idea of the process versus the result, and how the truth can be found by following the process. King Crimson's all about the results and skipping the process. That's the parallel you didn't notice during your watch through. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that definitely is a thing because of how directly the protagonists go after Passione and start to, you know, dismantle it. It's primarily more Giorno and Bruno's thing, with the other characters not really fully being aware of what they're doing. But yeah.
Hottest moms list.
Oh my gosh.
What about OPs?
OPs? I couldn't tell you. We'd have to do some
way
kind
too
of
many.
Like tier list video or something like that. SMH, not even mentioning this iconic moment. This is Requiem. So it's the same type of stand as Star Platinum. What? Oh my god, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh, now everyone's doing their kind ratings, their part ratings and stuff like that. Weirdly enough, for me, I don't know where part 5 fits in my rankings as of right now. It's weird. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Make sure that everything's we've got checked out here. Araki says it's a celebration of humanity in manga in theory and practice.
Oh, that makes sense with his like focus on style and everything. It definitely feels like a celebration.
Totally. Since Caleb doesn't have a definitive order, right. Yep. Okay, then I think we've got
all right,
the majority of things done there. Oh, by the way, a YouTuber called Ham on Beat makes videos in which he shows the music references of all the characters and things in JoJo. I'd recommend checking it out.
Oh, good to know.
We'll look into that. Sure. Thanks. Oh my gosh. How does it feel that the anime still hasn't reached any of the manga written in the 2000s? That blows my mind.
That kind of...
That's incredible.
That's ridiculous.
Because there's part 6, 7, and 8 of the manga done, right?
Right, and I think part 9 is going right now.
That's actually a good question, y'all. Where is the manga at right now? Part 8 is not done. Okay. Gotcha. Part 8 is ongoing. Okay. Cool.
Right.
Very, very cool. Oh, boy. Yeah. So, y'all, JoJo's anime reactions done for now.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy how many big things are ending soon as well. But thank you all for being with us on this crazy journey. For those of you that have been here with us through 2018, I think at this point, y'all are the best. This is legit.
I think the proper way to end this would be with a because this will be to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued until next time. But Jacob,
yes,
what can they find with us? What we're doing later this week? Yeah,
that's right. We've got a bunch of streams that we do throughout the week.
Yep.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
now.
And Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All those weekdays. Tomorrow is going to be One Piece manga readings with dramatic voices and everything.
Voices.
And it's absolutely insane. Our swordsman got lost in a very serious way.
That's true. That's true.
And that was where the volume ended off. So, yeah.
So that's a thing.
That's a thing.
Yep. If you haven't heard, also on Wednesdays now, I'm doing Dark Souls streams in addition to doing them on Fridays. What is life right now?
Prepare for trouble. Make it
more like death over and over and over and over again. It's almost like it's like my fate, my judgment, if you will.
Definitely.
An eternal, constant what?
Yep.
And those are at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time,
right?
Of course.
Wednesday and Friday.
Dark
and then
Souls
on Thursday, I do gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Also something where the deaths are an important part of it, but more because I need to keep the deaths down. I'm doing Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah.
That's the second Ori game. Yeah. And I think I'm going to be able to make the bet.
I think you are too. So I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out $100.
Yeah, you're going to owe me $100 by the time this is over. Maybe famous last words there, but
yeah. We'll see. But guys, leave a follow if you want to stay up to date with all of that. If you have Twitch Prime available and you want Bezos to send us some money, that's cool. You'll get a sub badge like the people in chat have there. You also get access to our private Discord where you can chat with us and the community there about, anime, stories, games, whatever.
JoJo's or my sci-fi novel Battle Lines.
Battle Lines?
Yep. So if, you're wondering like, okay, what kind of crazy story would Jacob come up with? Then you should check it out. It's on Amazon. The link is in chat. If you just go !BL, you'll be able to get that.
All the BL.
It's pretty cool.
So we'll see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Yeah. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time. Cool.
Oh, boy.
Gerald D. Lore. Exactly, Warforged Games. You get it.
That was so many different references all in the... Yeah.
Yeah.
We're done with JoJo's. Not done, but okay. This is the last time that we're probably going to have a legit excuse to wear these shirts for a very long time.
Please.
I mean, we can totally wear them to all kinds of social gatherings.
Like, Dio will come back eventually.
Hey, well, all right. We've had something related to Dio at the very least every odd part.
That's true.
Part 1, Dio. Part 3, Dio. Part 5, Dio's son. You know.
So part 7.
Like maybe
Dio's
that's why
grandson.
Wait, maybe that's why Part 7 is so popular, why it's so beloved, because it's more Dio-related type content somehow.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think that's definitely